Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll attempt to make this die disappear. Now, there are two ways of doing this, visibly and invisibly. I'm going to show you another way to make the die disappear, using this small, empty wooden container. I'll place the die into the box and close the doors. And now, with the wave of my hand, the die has disappeared. It is no longer in this side or this side. It is completely and totally disappeared. But as you can see, the die has disappeared from this side and this side. It has completely disappeared from here and here and reappeared back in the hat. Thank you.
How old were you when you appeared on Potluck to do that performance?
I was 15.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, look, a young country magician, grew up in the country. I don't think I'd really even met another magician at that point in time. So like a lot of young magicians, I'd started just sort of buying some proppy tricks, that sort of thing, from a magic shop I'd found in Melbourne. Sent for. So that was sort of, I guess, pretty typical of my show back then. But I did my first public show when I was 12, so I'd sort of done a few gigs when I decided this show came along. Oh, why not give it a go?
Now, what was the process to actually apply for it, and if you can remember any of the process?
Yeah, I do remember we had to, I guess, apply. I can't remember the exact process there, but we had to go down for an audition. So my parents took me down to Adelaide about a month before, where a whole lot of these acts got together. So we did actually audition, which I find a bit surprising for, you know, some of us who were on it. But yeah, went for an audition, and then a month later went back. I think it was a Saturday where we filmed like a week's worth of the show. So all the acts, we sat in bleachers. And the idea of the show Potluck is that you didn't know when you were going to be on. So we all were given a number, and then they started filming the show, and then they would just draw out a number or something like that. And then we'd go down, have a quick chat with the host, Ernie Sigley, and then get set for doing the show. And so then they'd go to a break, come back and record, you know, do the performance.
How nervous were you when you performed?
I probably wasn't. I certainly being nervous, being with the TV cameras and that on me. But as I said, I'd been doing shows a couple of years. I tend to not struggle too much with nerves, even now doing my shows, because I do put a fair bit of time and practice and prep in. So I know what I'm want to do, and you know, I guess that eased nerves, but certainly a 15-year-old kid, there was plenty of nerves going on.
Naturally, yeah. So when you had that routine, and unfortunately the camera cut away, now when it tilted and it said, or when you reacted and went, oh, was that the I guess the die magically reappearing for a split second?
It did reappear, and it was always a bit disappointing when we saw the live footage, because I'd had a chance before my performance to talk to the producer, and I said I wanted a whole front body shot of my hands, this box, and my expression, rather than a close-up just on the box, so that they kind of could realise it was perhaps caught me by surprise. But yeah, at that point, the dice was visible in the box, and then after that, it disappeared again. What they also didn't show at the end, which I only just realised again now, is that I pulled that dice then out of the hat, but they cut away from that too, so you didn't sort of see that it reappeared in the hat.
I commend you for having the guts and the determination to do that in front of a national audience. And
thank you.
When that was shown on The Late Show, because that was done in, was it 86, 87?
87, yeah.
Yep. And to be screened a few years later as a comedic
toilet break.
Oh, yeah, toilet break, yeah. That's with good compliments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, so when that was shown, like, were you watching The Late Show at the time?
I was. I was actually watching that night. I was a fan of The Late Show, so that was Saturday night, I was just sitting at home, so I was probably about 20 at the time, and I distinctly remember sitting there watching it, and then Tony Martin, I think, is the one that said my name, and I think I said, "You bastard," but in all honesty, if I'm honest with myself, I was quite chuffed to be selected to be a toilet break on the Late Show. And you're talking about the dice trick. When I just watched it again now, I really feel like that's a sucker trick. It's meant for audience interaction, particularly it's a kid's trick. I think the laughter from the audience of the Late Show was a better response than the audience, in the studio, the day of filming.
So when they did that cutaway where people looked a bit, flummoxed, was that like a bit of a natural reaction, if you could remember, or were you just concentrating so much on the camera and just getting your performance
when it got just my face?
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I wanted it to be my face sort of as if it caught me by surprise that the dice was still there.
Gotcha.
But I wanted them to show that the dice was in there, but that's what they didn't do. They cut just to my face, yeah.
I'm always fascinated with magicians, aren't you, Bernard?
Yes, indeed. And I've seen some good ones too. And I really admire the art. I respect you for including some dialogue as you present your work. We need to step up the pace there. I would have said that in the time you have there, 3 or 4 tricks would have fitted into that time. Your silk operation has to be much faster and your disappearing dice even faster. I hope to have the opportunity, and we all hope to have the opportunity of seeing your work develop. 32.
And did you take advice from Bernard at all, or did you just whatever? Because you're only 15, you still got room to improve, I guess, or...
Look, I went into the whole thing knowing that Bernard could be quite crucial, quite critical and harsh.
Yeah.
And so I guess, my parents would prompt me too to sort of say, don't take anything to heart, whatever he says. But I must admit, he said about speeding things up, all of that. And then in fact, I'm pretty sure on the original, he talked for longer than what they showed on the Late Show, because he said about speeding it up, and then he's got completely off track talking about some other magicians that he'd seen. And then he came back and said 32 or whatever. So he really didn't, get stuck into me at all. So I was quite pleased by that.
What did you actually win? What was the prize?
I couldn't remember, to be honest. I think something like a set of steak knives or something like that. I don't know. But I do know that if you won, then you went to Melbourne to go into a final or something like that.
Yeah.
So at the time, it didn't bother me at all not to have to then think, well, what other tricks am I going to do because that was going to be quite soon, I think, to go again and do another episode. So I was more than happy not to have to do that at the time.
So what are you doing right now? Are you still performing, or you have mentioned in our chat that you're still doing the odd magic trick or illusion, I should say, sorry. It's been my, I guess, hobby, but also sort of sideline throughout, the last 35 years or whatever it's been since then. I do close-up magic, table to table. I still do like a stand-up show, like an after-dinner show, a lot of corporate dinners and functions, that sort of thing. So not the big stage illusions, but more what's called a cabaret style show. I've worked actually for a long time. My day job is in a winery here in the Barossa. That keeps me busy. So I just do shows, on the weekends or, just those that come to me, actually. I don't really advertise a lot. I do have that website up that you found. But most of the work I do is just those that come to me through word of mouth and referrals and that sort of thing. How long did you keep the get up for, like the hat, the clothing?
Probably not very long. I've had a variety of outfits. Now I generally just wear a suit. Yeah, again, as a young kid, that was probably more my mother's influence of, sourcing a waistcoat and that sort of thing. Yeah.